All right, welcome back to Pave the Way podcast. I am here with the one and only investor cop, Ilya Kos, formerly from New York. Now he's in PA because he realized that state just wants your money. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely, man. The taxes are way too high. Everything's too expensive in New York.
That's good.
Got to get out of there quick, man.
Yeah, bro, I'm saying that. Coming from California, I'm in California, so it's even more expensive out here. So I was really pumped to get you on the show because we've been buddies for a while. I think we've met a few times in person. We've been connected on social media, and I've just seen the growth that you've had over the last couple of years and just your story of how you got started and starting out in the NYPD. I think it's just a real cool story for people to listen to. And I think this show is going to inspire a lot of people who might be working 9-to-5 jobs that they can go out there if they really want it and make it happen in this business. So, man, let's just get right into it. Tell me a little bit about your background, like before you even got into the workforce, like before the NYPD, like where did you grow up and kind of what was your background? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool that you asked, man. I just want to say thanks for having me on. Yeah, definitely excited, bro. I know we've been buddies for a while. That's why I was about to call you bro, just because I have the type of relationship with you. But yeah, man, really excited. I actually grew up in Russia. I was born and raised in Russia till I was about 10 years old. Grew up like dirt poor, really poor. Lived in the projects in Russia on the 8th floor with no elevator. You know, you got to take the stairs at night, and it was rough life living, man. So it was like right after the communism collapsed. So we lived in Siberia, and that area was just completely freezing cold and just destroyed by the economic downfall of the communism, to the point where, like I said, we would live in the 8th floor. You would walk up the stairs, and there would be like no light bulbs because people were stealing them. They were desperate for money, trying to resell light bulbs. It was definitely like a rough childhood, I guess, but it actually made me really disciplined and really appreciative of the small things. So all those horrible things that happen make me realize, like, wow, most things that people may take for granted, I'm really grateful for those things because of my background experience.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. I did not know that. I didn't know you were in Siberia. I mean, I know that you're Russian, but I didn't know like you lived there till you were 10 and you were living in Siberia, man. Is Siberia as extreme as it's perceived, at least on Google?
Yes, it actually is, man. If not crazier. It's insane over there.
Man, that is crazy.
The weather, you know what I mean? The people are tough. The weather's tough. Lack of food is just survival, like full-on survival of the fittest over there. It's crazy.
Yeah. And is Siberia like northern? Is that like the northern tip of Russia? Or because I feel like people don't really know, like they just think it's part of Russia. Like where is Siberia exactly, just for the listeners here?
It's like east and north. Northeast would be, right? So it's going towards towards Alaska. Just
damn.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you're like directly above China, basically.
Yes. Yeah. We lived actually pretty close, a few hours away from the Chinese border too. So it was right there.
Smokes, dude. That's crazy. Yeah. I did not know that. What ended up getting you and your family to move over to the States? Because I think your story is just so unique. We're going to get into how you got into the NYPD and things like that. But how did you end up coming to the US, dude? Especially at 10 years old. That's tough to do, bro.
Yeah, it was actually a really, really crazy story. My uncle's like very smart, and he became like an engineer, and then he ended up going here to, I guess, like a work visa. And they liked him, and they let him stay here, and he was eventually able to invite he got married and invited my mom over, who had to live. So that was also tough, growing up without a mom for a whole year in Russia. And then he invited us over. We had visas, and then we were able to travel here in 1999. And that was a crazy transition, man. Just like, I grew up in the Ural Mountains over there. Just nothing, as advanced as it was here. So just seeing the amount of technology, the people and everything, was like, whoa, like blew my mind. So grew up in a small, village. And when I left in 1999, in that house we lived in the projects, but my grandma's house, she had no telephone line, not even plumbing in that house. Like there was an outhouse and a well where you like got a rope and bucket and got water in 1999. And that was like crazy. Like coming here, everyone's just so accustomed to it. I'm like, man, you guys just even using the bathroom maybe take it for granted. So crazy.
Gosh, that's crazy, man. That is crazy. So you moved over here, and where you moved to what part? Where did you exactly move to? Like in New York? I know because you moved to the East Coast.
Yeah. So my uncle was married to an Irish girl, and I ended up moving to Woodlawn in the Bronx. So
Oh
Woodlawn
wow.
is like the tip of the Bronx where it borders Yonkers. So it's a small, like, it's actually a large Irish community here, kind of secluded in the part of the Bronx and runs into Yonkers. So I live literally in the border. Where I lived since we moved was right there. One street is the Yonkers, one street is the Bronx. So like you would park your car in the Bronx and live in Yonkers. And it was so funny to live on the border. And,
What do they call that area? Bonkers?
yeah. Yep.
I've heard that before. Yeah, because I'm from, I'm originally from the New York area. So let's kind of fast forward. So I really wanted to make sure that the listeners kind of knew, or kind of see that you began your journey, obviously not even in the U.S. So let's fast forward up to, you went to high school, you went to middle school. How did you end up getting in like the NYPD out of all things? Because like a lot of people, that I know, not that many people are in the NYPD. My dad's actually a retired cop in
Wow.
White Plains. Yeah. But, as I started to get to know you, I'm like, oh, because I didn't know you were a cop. I just thought you were an investor. And then I saw a picture of you like, a couple of years ago when you used to work in the NYPD. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's a cop too? What the fuck? Is he like Superman? So how did you end up getting involved in the NYPD, and what made you like kind of choose that field of work, at least in the beginning of your career?
Honestly, like I went to school, I was just kind of lost. Like, as a kid, I was just not sure what I wanted to do. I always had like a hustler's mentality. So I kind of was like selling candy bars in school, right? Pokemon cards were there. So I would like flip them and things like that nature. But I really I wasn't educated enough to like start my own business right off the start. I mean, technically I was running little businesses, but as a career, I went to college. I was like studying culinary arts. I had a full scholarship to like Johnson's in Wales. I was going to be a chef. And then I saw how much money they make. And I'm like, man, it's not worth it for me, to spend all this time and then, make whatever it was, like $20,000 starting a year. And I was like, there's no way I can do that. I switched my major to nursing because my mom's a nurse. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. I did it for like 6 months. Like, man, there's no way I'm doing this. So literally the first like 2 years, I just like, spend time educating myself in fields that I was just kind of didn't enjoy or appreciate. And then came across like criminal justice, right? I had a few friends who were cops and they're like, dude, you should definitely start this thing. This is a cool job, right? You get to, help people make a difference. And there's a lot of growth there. So I was like, all right, cool. So once I started studying criminal justice, I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. I like really enjoyed criminal justice and was really passionate. I couldn't wait to get in. So I kind of like had a vision after that. I wanted to be a police officer. And eventually I got called. Cause I took the test when I was 18 years old and started the process, like the hiring process when I was about 19, 20, because you could get on like a 20 and a half. I almost got hired at 20 and a half as a police officer. At 29 months to be correct, because, by the time you go to the shooting range, you'll be 21 and you're legally could have a firearm in New York. And I missed that deadline by like a month or so. That was crazy.
That is nuts, dude. That's crazy, man. I didn't know you started with the whole chef thing and then the nurse. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I couldn't be like a nurse or something. Like I just have, there's so much respect for them, but like to see blood and to have to give needles to people, like I'm like, I'm scared to go to the dentist still, between you and I. So, so you get into the NYPD. Like I have a couple good friends who are NYPD officers in the Bronx. So, where were you patrol? Like, where was your, what was your precinct? Is it a precinct? Yeah, it's a precinct. Where were you kind of a cop in the Bronx? Because the Bronx has some tough areas.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, definitely. Some of the worst areas in New York, some of the roughest. So, and they say like, Bronx cops, like the finest cops in America. They gave that the reputation to themselves because they're always competing against Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, man, when I started out, I worked was foot patrol. So back then they had foot patrol back in 2011. They called it Impact. And it was like neighborhood policing, but on foot. And that was in 52nd precinct, which is from like Webster Avenue all the way to Grand Concourse, and 183rd Street. So that's like, that's very close to Fordham University. That precinct covers Fordham University. And Bronx Community College. So that was I did a year there. Yeah. So it's a really big precinct, and man, that was crazy. Just being a kid out of college, and then now I'm like, here you go, went to the police academy for 6 months, and then you go in the streets and you're like, man, like now I'm a cop.
Yeah, like you're responsible for all this stuff in the biggest city in the world, man. So what was it? I mean, you don't have to get too detailed here, but like I'm sure the listeners are like, oh man, this guy was a cop in the Bronx. Like, what are some of the craziest things that you've seen? Maybe like the top 1 or 2 things, without getting too like gruesome or whatever, but just like that you saw and you just couldn't believe what you were seeing. Like, this is like insane,
Yeah. There's so many. I don't know where to start.
So many.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Or a regular thing. What's a regular crazy thing that you would see that to the normal person they would be like, oh my God, but to you it's like, oh yeah, I see this all the time. Like, just like
probably like naked crazy, like somebody maybe off their meds and naked running around. I'm like, oh, all right, cool, everyday person. That's John, he's off the meds, something like that, right? And that became kind of normal. And then obviously dealing with finding people who may have passed away, and nobody knows, that nobody really checks up on them, and then they find their body 1 or 2 weeks later because of the smells, and now people are concerned. But that became kind of normal. And I was just like, okay, cool, all right, you got to go to this, location for the rest of your tour, because there's a dead body. You have to wait for a medical examiner to arrive.
Yeah, and these are mostly in those project buildings, right? Because there's just so many people in there, and like there's people, you can get stuck in there for like months, because it's like there's 3,000 people in that building. Yeah, exactly. It
was in projects, and it was like all over the place. People's houses. Sometimes some homeless people sleep outside, and medical conditions, and medical condition, and just somebody finds them dead.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy thing is, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I guess it's kind of, maybe it might be too gruesome, but somebody called in
just
for
say it, whatever.
Somebody called in for a shopping cart, and they're like, I see a human foot in there. And then came across there, and there was a dead person that got chopped up and
Oh my gosh. Is this at night or during the daytime?
This was around like summertime, around 7. So it's just getting a little dark, right? Because it stays light out. It's like 8:30. So
oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could, like, if I did that for one day, I don't know if I could go back, man. That's why, like, my buddy Brian Beach, I give so much respect for him, because I'm like, dude, I don't know how you can go into like see stuff like that every day and not like have nightmares, like, oh man, that's crazy. That is crazy. So dude, I got to ask you, so you have a crazy background. How in the world did you get into real estate? Because like just going from Russia to being a cop is a huge accomplishment. Like growing up in Siberia, probably didn't know English as well as most people. Like, how the hell did you decide you want to get into like buying real estate? Because a big issue I see people have that listen to the show is they want to get in the game, but they have a full-time job. When you had a full-time job for a while and then successfully transitioned to full-time investor. So like how did you even find out about real estate, and how did you kind of get into the game, especially being a full-time police officer in New York City?
Hey, my story is kind of crazy. I think it's really unique. It's really interesting too. I never thought in a million years, like I didn't even know what real estate was until something happened, right? So I was a New York City police officer, like you said. I was very happy, right? Like a dream job for most people, including myself. And then I was very happy with everything. But then I went through a bad breakup. All right. So bad breakup. My ex moved out of the house, took all the money. So I was like kind of dead broke. And then, in like a short amount of time, instantly I fell in love with another girl, right? My current wife. I met her when I was at my lowest. And, we fell in love really, really quickly. And she got pregnant, like right away. She got pregnant. And plus she had 2 daughters who I inherited. So technically I inherited 3 kids and a wife at the time. And I was a rookie cop, and I wasn't making a lot of money because New York City is so expensive for rent, for food, for car insurance.
Crazy.
So I think at the time I was making like 50 grand as a police officer. And I'm like, man, I got to support a family of 5 people, right? Including my son she was pregnant with. So at that time I went back to, I guess, my the basics. And I was like, all right, cool, man. What do I do for extra money? Because I the overtime is not cutting it. They cut it down in where I was. And then I wasn't doing overtime at all. I couldn't do overtime for my job because I was working inside the office at the time. And I was like, I have to hustle. I have to find a way to make money. So I started selling like Michael Jordan sneakers, right? Buying them for 200, selling for 250, 190, selling for 250, 300. Got into that because one of my buddies was like, oh yeah, I'm doing Jordans. So I was like, oh, that's sweet. So I got into that business. And luckily, since I had so many family members, they would give like one raffle per person. So my odds were like 5x because I had so many family members. 4 technically, they wouldn't give it to the baby, but it would help me win these sneakers. So I started making money with this thing. But I realized you can't really scale this up, and people flake on you. They don't want to buy sneakers. So I got into, my brother is big into fitness. I was on the NYPD boxing team for like 4 years as well. I did boxing for like 15 years. And I was like, was big into fitness. So me and my brother came back with a t-shirt company we tried it, right? It was called, Chasing Perfection. And it was really awesome, but it wasn't, I guess we didn't know how to run the business correctly. I didn't see scaling it. Our sales were down. And I said, okay, let's move on to the next one because I still need money. I'm broke. I have a family. Ended up starting a taxi company where we would buy cabs, cars, and convert them to taxis and rent them out in New York City to drivers because it's expensive to get a car and get it converted. So people would just rent cars. So I started renting that, and we'll build it up to like 3-car portfolio until I realized, unlike, rental properties, people don't really care about the cars. There's a lot of wear and tear, and the streets of the Bronx are not the suspension in the car. Potholes just completely destroying the cars. And somebody had a car for 1 year and they look like it's been around for like 10. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing this because it wasn't again worth the headache for me. I was like, okay, I'm making money, but I need something that I can scale up and get into bigger. Which eventually led me on to another police officer who was doing an MLM, multi-level marketing company, about like vacations, dream trips, if I recall. And I got into that and like in May 2016. And I read the book, they said, hey, read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's good for like MLM. It's good for you to learn sales and this and that. So I literally read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Not read, I listened to the audio, and they mentioned real estate. And I was like, man, real estate, what is that? This sounds really crazy. The guy bought a condo, sold it to me $10,000, $50,000. I'm like, man, that's my type of business. I need to get into it. So, and I was trying to do both. I was like, okay, get into real estate, educating myself on YouTube, and do an MLM. I was like, I need to do one of these. I can't focus on too many things. One of them has to go, and I think it's going to be the MLM because real estate sounds like it's way more scalable, right? So that is when I started self-education process, learning on YouTube, reading books, and eventually, even getting mentors to train me. And man, it wasn't easy at all. I have to be honest. Like I said, I was broke. I ended up going to like a Rich Dad Poor Dad event. They were going to charge 30 grand or 35 grand on the credit card to get the thing started. And I was like, man, I left that event. I was like, I don't have enough credit, line to get this thing done. So I found eventually a mentor who would say, hey, I would do 50-50 splits with you. And you put some money down, not 30 grand. And I'll teach you everything I know, but you have to do splits with me for a year. And man, like I said, it took me about 7 months to get my first, big check, official deal closed in the Bronx. And that was amazing. It was $48,000. It was amazing.
Dude, that is amazing. And how did you find this mentor, dude? That's interesting.
I was, like I said, self-educating and listening to podcasts like you have, a podcast, YouTube channels. And that's where, send a message. And I was like, hey, you have any mentorship or apprentice programs or anything like that? And that's how it was. I got into that from off YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's crazy. That's amazing, dude. That is a crazy story, dude. You're just a hustler, man. I love it. Like you knew you had to, figure it out. The police thing, it just wasn't allowing you to make the money that you wanted to make. And you're like, instead of sitting here and complaining about it, you're like, I'm going to try these businesses. And then eventually it's like you found the magical book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And if the listeners haven't read that book by now, you got to go out and read it now or listen to it. And that's just crazy. You got into the business, you know, as a full-time cop, especially, and I want to talk about this a little bit because you and I still do deals in New York. Like in New York is a tough market if you're a newbie. Like our area is not easy if you're brand new. Like it took me 9 months to make $1 in that tri-state area because it's just, there's a barrier to entry, and you need to have, you know, you need to have some nuts, some balls, honestly, because you're going to get a lot of rejection, and it's a lot harder to lock deals up. So, dude, how did you navigate through those New York waters when you got started? Because it was so hard for me, dude. Like it was so hard in that market. It was like,
I can definitely agree with you, man. New York is definitely one of the toughest markets. Like if you can do one deal in New York, you can do deals anywhere in America. Right, like you could just you should be certified and get like, you know, a certification of wholesaling, because if you can pass that, because man, like you said, New York, it's got the buyer, the seller, and the end buyer, and then it's got the 3 attorneys involved. So now it's like you have to play telephone. One attorney has to talk to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Man, it was like pulling hair, and I've lost deals because of attorneys. And then I was like, man, I need an attorney that actually understands what I'm doing and will represent me. And eventually I ended up going to the attorney who killed my first deal. I could have, there was a potential $80,000 spread in that deal in New York in Dobbs Ferry. Ended up losing that deal. And man, I was like, I got to go to the attorney who killed that deal, because they know what they're doing. And I ended up hiring them. And they were like, you know, they would negotiate and speak on my behalf, obviously, to the other attorney, because in New York, they don't want you to assign the contracts. And obviously, if you're doing wholesaling, the assignment is, you know, is key. You can't wholesale without assigning it.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started. And trial and error. My actual first deal was actually like a cash deal, and I got so lucky. Like I had this lady. She gave me an agreement. I don't think I even had the deal under contract. Like I started in June. This deal was like September, October. And she really, like, she called me back. This house was listed in the MLS. I found her on Craigslist. It was listed in the MLS. She was hating her broker. He wasn't doing his job. And she was like, okay, well, you know, I'll call you back if anything. And then I get a phone call a few months later. She's like, hey, I'm ready to go at that price. You know, I want to sell this house to you. It was like $270, and the house was worth like $400.
Where was the house?
Granite Springs.
Granite Springs. Okay.
That's still Westchester County. That's that's like a small little town there, but it's Westchester, and she called me back, and I was like, all right, cool. I had some buyers that I built up from the bandit signs from looking around, and I blasted it out. And one guy's like, hey, I actually like this deal. Ended up meeting me at the property with the seller, you know, the seller's son. And I had to act like he was my partner. But at the time, I was so new, man. I was so nervous, and we were like so bad at it, and we kept asking each other questions. And which, you know, people were like, how do you guys partners, and you don't know what school he went to, what college he went to, his birthday, or, you know, where he lives. So,
oh my God,
you know, we played it off, and the son was really cool. He was a young guy too. He was like a college kid. So, ironically enough, the only reason this deal worked was because the guy who was interested in buying a house, his cousin worked in my precinct in the South Bronx. He's like, wait, Thomas is my cousin. And I was like, yeah, he's a cop too. He's a detective now. I'm like, exactly. Yeah, I work with Thomas too. And man, we kicked it off, and that's why I was able to do this deal, because he actually, you know, he paid me, and it was incredible.
That's crazy. Did you wholesale? What was the wholesale fee on that thing?
$5,000. $5,000. He's like, I'll pay you cash, you know, if you could just walk away, and like, you know, like whatever, like as your assignment fee. And I'm like,
yeah. I've done that, dude. I've done that many times. Yeah. In the beginning. Dude, I would do the same thing you were doing. Literally almost the same thing, like verbatim, dude. Once they closed, they'd give me a check and I'd walk away.
That's it. And I was like, $5,000. Like, man, making that $5,000 was probably like the best thing in the world. Like, it was like, oh my God, this is real. Like,
dude,
here we go.
Oh,
it works.
Man. I can relate to that so much in New York. That is exactly how I started, dude. I would go to Larry and Frank, and
That's
I would bring them deals, and they would give me like a $5,000 to $10,000 assignment fee, and they would lock the deal up themselves because I didn't have the money for the down payment. Then like that's how I got started, dude. And then I'd put that into marketing, and then from there, you know, it kind of grew. But dude, that's crazy. I just feel like we have a relatable story, like how we got into real estate, because we were both kind of like doing self-education, and then we're like, how do we, like, you know, get into this game in this tough market? So, dude, how did you end up getting to the point where, obviously you're doing tons of business today in Pennsylvania? Like, How did you get to the point to where you were able to quit your NYPD job or retire? I think it was retire because the pension.
Yeah, technically retired, man.
Yeah. How did you end up getting to retire that early? Like, what did you do to grow that business? Like, just give us kind of some steps that you took from going from, I'm making some money, like some decent side money in real estate, to like, okay, I'm doing this, to where it makes more sense for me to do this full time versus be a police officer full time. So like, how long did it take to get there? And then what are some steps that you did to actually get there?
For it to, it's been 1 year since I quit. I quit like in April 9th or April 10th, 2019. That's when I quit. It was my last day as a police officer. And I, came to the idea of quitting and retiring was like in February. I was at an event with a lot of other investors. And, at that point we were just, had acquisitions, had a whole team, and we were getting deals, and we were, flipping houses virtually. We had rental properties, and I was like, people like, wait, why you're still a cop? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just still a cop, right? And we are doing deals, and they're like, well, how much do you have in the pipeline? We're like, well, for this month we have 125,000 closing. And people were like, why are you a cop? How much do you make as a cop in a year? I was like, I don't know, like 115, like with this overtime is like all that stuff. And he's like, dude, you should quit your job and put all the energy in the business. I was like, what, do you guys really think so? So I had like 4 people sit there and talk to me, like, why would it be a good idea? Like, and I thought about quitting, retiring, but not right there and then. I was like, I'll do it probably in August or September, but that was probably the best case scenario. Definitely got to, I was waiting to get food on the line in the buffet over there. And I talked to this guy named Tang, and this guy was just like, hey, he's from Texas. He's really cool. And he just told me his story, which, he had his like a steady job also, and he ended up quitting. He's like, dude, you got to just take the leap of faith. Let's go. So I was sitting at a table full of Texans who convinced me to quit, man. And that was probably the best decision I've ever done. It was so awesome. It was really,
that's amazing. That's amazing. Just taking the jump, and like you did it smart. Like you did it in a smart fashion. You didn't just quit your job when you didn't know what you're doing. You had a huge pipeline at this point, rentals, flips going on. You knew how the process worked, so you weren't like going to be guessing. Like you had a business already existing. So, dude, I just think that is just a crazy story on how you kind of got started. So let's start to wrap the show up with like, what does your business look like today? Because you moved to Pennsylvania. So do you still do deals in New York, or you mostly just focus out of New York State?
Out of New York. I don't want to deal with the freaking, 8-month process or 6-month process to close it. If a deal comes across, like we've done one a few months ago in Mount Vernon, and it was quick because it was at the very end. They just needed to get a buyer. Everything was ready to go. And the person was cool. He was actually one of my acquisitions managers that worked for me. It was like his cousin who was getting to wholesaling. He's like, hey, I have a deal here in Mount Vernon if you have a buyer. And I'll bring a buyer and brought in 10 grand. Oh, but before I go into the operation right now, the only thing I want to say, obviously for anyone who's getting started, I recommend you guys keep your full-time jobs and do this on the side. Because it was just you don't have to do full-time hours, right? You spend 1-2 hours cold calling, following up on your leads, speaking to sellers, you're going to be okay, right? When you have a team and, you're doing, 15 transactions a month, 20 transactions a month, you're going to need to do full-time hours. But, in the beginning, you're doing 1 to 2 deals a month. Like if you're lucky, you're doing one every couple months. Take your time until you grow yourself and your business and your operation.
There's no rush. That's great advice. Cause that's phenomenal advice. You did it like you grew the business successfully, and then you knew that, you're doing 10, 15 deals a month. Like, okay, now I don't need to really have this job.
Yeah. We were steady.
Consistent. And that's key, man. That is key. So what does the operation look like today, man? Because you're in PA, but you're doing deals. I see stuff. You got stuff out in California. You're all over the place, man. I love it. So just kind of give us the high level overview. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm focusing now for the past 2 years, since 2018, started doing virtual wholesaling. So we started in 1 market, 2 markets, and kind of spread out. Learned that it's not as bad as people make it seem. Obviously, you have to make the right contacts and everything else. But right now, my team is 2 acquisitions people, 1 dispositions manager, and 1 transaction coordinator. And then I have my wife, who also is my partner now. She does my social media and marketing and operations in there. So, we have a good family operating, and actually one of my stepdaughters does my dispo too. So it's awesome, kind of keeping a family-oriented business as well. and we're able to work, twice as hard, 3 times as hard, just because it's family working together for the same goal.
I love that, man. That's awesome. And what areas are you primarily focused on? I mean, if you're virtually wholesaling, you could be anywhere. So what are like the main markets that you're doing business in? And maybe some people listening, if they got deals for you or they want to partner with you, like what is your primary area that you're doing most of your deals?
Right now, my primary area is Columbus, Ohio. Love that market.
Okay.
Been there for about 2 years now. New Jersey, like Essex County, New Jersey is really good for me. Then Las Vegas, Nevada, there's some great deals over there. So anybody got like deals in Vegas, California, Columbus, Ohio, Jersey, even New York, I'll take a look at them and see if this is something we can do. We have strong buyers in these areas. Even Florida as well. So, St. Petersburg, Florida, and Broward County. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. And are you wholesaling? Like, what is the average, like, with your virtual, like, are you wholesaling everything? Are you doing some flips in these areas? Are you doing rentals? Like, or are you just strictly trying to do the wholesales?
Great question. Yeah. I'm right now mainly focusing on wholesaling, only wholesaling, because I was big into doing wholetailing. You close on it, clean it out, list it. I was doing flips and I was doing wholesaling. Right now, actually, we have like 3 flips that we're finishing up now. They're ready to hit the market, and a lot of wholesales. Like, it just kind of shifted everything because each strategy is good, but they all take different amount of energy. Obviously, wholesaling is kind of the easiest, right? Title's getting pulled, you sign it, and you move it on. So that's why I said, like, guys, let's just focus more and more on wholesales and, slow down the flips and the wholesales at the current moment. So I would say like 80%, 80% wholesales, 10% flips, 10% wholesales.
Absolutely. That's awesome, dude. And that's something, I mean, as we're recording this during this whole coronavirus thing, I mean, people are just a little uncertain about what could be happening in the next 6 to 12 months. And I mean, if you can get good at finding deals, which is essentially what wholesaling really is, I mean, you can make money in any market, because if the market drops 10%, you just got to buy it 10% cheaper. So I think, that's a skill alone, that if you have that ability to find deals, I mean, that's the skill of skills. It's essentially you can control your own destiny at that point, so.
For sure.
Man,
for sure.
I love what you got going on, man. So as we wrap the show up, the last question I got for you before we get into like your best advice to people, starting out or who they want to quit their job, what are you doing today that in marketing that is allowing you to get the lead flow to get this volume that you're doing consistently?
Obviously PPC. Majority of people who are filling out the websites and Facebook is definitely good because those people are hotter and more motivated. You're not going to get as much volume, but you're going to get quality. So I always recommend PPC. And another thing I got into is like text messaging. So that's really popular now because most people check their phones. So, sending out SMS and blasting out, messages, 20,000, 30,000 messages, that's really, really powerful as well.
Yeah.
But totally. You have to be able, you have to be ready, because you have 30,000 people replying to you. So you need systems, VAs, and, processes in place. If you're going to go that, yeah.
100%, but you can get a good cost per lead with texting. I mean, the best deal of my life in Nanuet was off a text. It was off a cold text.
Oh, really?
And I made over $100,000 on it. Yeah. He got a text on his phone. Yeah. So it's interesting. With the Facebook, I'm doing Facebook as well. Are you doing with the Facebook, are you driving them to your website, or are you having them opt in on the lead form on Facebook and then taking them down from there?
So I'm running both. I'm running like side by side right now. I've done both. I've done just a web form and my website. So people, I feel like, are more comfortable to just do it on the web form right there and then. Really basic and simple, because when you drive into your website, it's like it's another step, right? You got to wait for it to load. What do I click next? Or you click here, name, boom.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm testing, I'm getting on with my Facebook guy tomorrow, but I'm seeing that with the web form, we're getting way more leads, and I made the criteria a little bit stricter to where they have to confirm the information, and I put a couple extra questions in, but we're seeing when they go to the website, there's much higher intent, but you're not going to get as high as a conversion rate from like an opt-in standpoint. But when those people opt into that website after they see Facebook, they're pretty interested in selling because they went from Facebook to the website to opting in. And now they're like, now we have all the information and we're like, okay, we can have a pretty good conversation with them. So, and then the web forms too, we get great leads all the time just because it's the whole like idea of they see something. It's like the Facebook it's almost like it's a bandit sign, but it's online. Like you're not driving around on the streets looking to sell your house, and then you happen to, like, you just see that sign and you call it. So like Facebook's the same thing. You're on Facebook, you're scrolling, you see something, oh, sell your house quickly. Oh crap, my grandma's house is a piece of shit. And then so it's an interesting style of marketing. But yeah, I'm doing the same thing there, man. The key, and obviously you're going to agree with this, the key is you got to just be consistent. Like no matter what you're doing in marketing, you got to set up a system and then have key metrics that system should measure up against. And then if it's working or not. And that's a big thing I see that new investors, when you say KPIs or systems, they get like scared. They don't get it. And it's just really just tracking your numbers and holding your marketing accountable to get that return so you can scale it,
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, man. Well, listen, man, as we wrap the show up, final question here for you before we share some contact information. If you had to give anyone listening to the show, whether they're an advanced investor or a new investor or someone looking to get into entrepreneurship, your best advice, what would that advice be?
I think you kind of mentioned it right there. KPIs. I had no idea what that was, right? For me, like running a business was just, get as many leads as you can and then, and just keep closing deals. But when you start tracking things, right? If you're not tracking, you don't have a business. So you need to track how much money is being spent on operations, right? Your office, if you have one, right? Your marketing, your systems. You need to know how much you're spending and if you're running like Facebook, you're putting up bandit signs and you're sending a mail, you got to know which one's working better, and you got to shift with the market because sometimes one works better. Next month, the other one will pick up. So you have to play with those things, right? Start tracking your lead sources and see where they come from and adjust accordingly, right? If PPC is working, double down, right? If mailers are working, double down, and you might see the other one not working, so maybe stop it, right? Because people get caught up in marketing too much marketing, but it's never too much. It's incorrectly marketing and blowing your budget. That's what I would say.
Love that. Dude, oh man, that's such good advice. And it's like people get scared to spend money on marketing. But when when you're good at marketing, you've done it for a while, every time you spend $1 on marketing, you're going to get 3 or 4 back. So like how quickly can you spend that money? Like when I do mailers, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go drop 15, 20,000 mailers, but I know that will result in $20,000 to $30,000. Yeah. Which will then, it's just like multiplying capital, like with marketing. And you just got to look at it and really study marketing and then go into real estate, like study how marketing works. And then when you understand how marketing works and you go apply it in this business, you're going to have a way better understanding. So like guys like Dan Kennedy and Frank Kern and like the whole direct response marketing, it's just really, really important to know. And
if I could jump in on top of that, just to say, I think it's like a mind shift, right? For people, I know we're wrapping it up. It's a mind shift for most people who are working 9-to-5s and they're not entrepreneurs or business owners like I wasn't. I was like, man, I spent like $5,000 on marketing. I haven't got anything back on credit cards. My wife's like, you should quit. What are you doing? Go back, just, work more as a cop. And I was like, absolutely not. Trust me, it's going to work. It's going to work. Because I kind of understood it, right? I understood like this is the part of the game. You spend a lot of money. You might spend 5 and you're going to get 5x, 10x back. So
that's gold, man. That's mindset, man. You knew that was going to work over time, man. And that's, you got to believe in the process. And it's not, especially in New York, you're probably not going to get your money back for a while, but when you get your money back, it's going to come back, 3, 4, 5x,
That's
through the sales cycle in New York. Oh my God, dude. I mean, actually it's funny I guess this will be bonus content here. Dude, I had a deal. I shit you not. I bought this. Devin and I made a boatload of money on this house in New Windsor. We literally went from contract to close, like with the seller in 4 fucking weeks.
My God. In New York?
Isn't that crazy? In New York, dude. Yeah,
that
bro.
Is insane.
In New York. Yeah. We locked up the deal and closed in 4 weeks, dude, cash. And I was man. Crazy, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not normally the case.
Yeah. I think like I got lucky once and it was 5 weeks, but I think on average it's like 4 to 6 months. Like that's going to happen.
That's crazy. Dude, what's the fattest deal you've done in New York? Because even though that market is tough, like, dude, you can make crazy spreads in Westchester and Rockland.
I've done 2, it was within the same year, and it was just like 1 month, it was 2 different deals. So one was like 25 and then we closed at 85. One day into this. So it was like 100 and some grand. I'm like, oh my God. Right dude. There and then. Just on 2 properties, and it was incredible. I actually sold it to Frank and Larry too.
Dude, was that the Sleepy Hollow one, the 85 one?
Yes.
Dude, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I know about that deal. Man, that was a monster wholesale deal. Did you assign that or double close?
No, straight assignment. It was 85 grand. And then another one was like 97 grand the same year, like later on. It was insane. I was like, that year was 2018. It was crazy. Another one in Austining, New York.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've done deals over there. That's crazy, bro. Well, listen, man, I could talk about deals all day. If people wanted to reach out to you and either contact you via email or find you online, what are the best ways to reach you?
I enter probably, I would say, like Instagram Messenger. So at TheInvesorCop is my username for Instagram. And if you want to email me, you could email me at Ilya, which is ILYA, my first name, at finesthomebuyers.com. I think like the investor copy, you might be able to find that as well on Facebook.
Awesome. Cool. Let me just double check on here that it loads. And let's see here. Ilya, the Investor Cop. Boom. Got him. All right, man. Well, I'm sure some people will be reaching out, man. This was a great show. I appreciate your time as always.
Yeah,
and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Hey, likewise. Take care. Pleasure.
See ya.
Yeah.